Okay, get this. We're about to plunge into a truly bizarre journey. The life of Gerald Vincent Bull.
Oh, yeah. Bull.
Imagine like James Bond meets Wile E. Coyote,
Yeah.
but also a Bond villain.
Huh. That's actually pretty accurate.
All obsessed with building this absolutely massive cannon, like a doomsday cannon to shoot satellites. Maybe even, well, nukes into orbit.
And the end of his story. Wow. Assassinated. Just like that.
Exactly. So forget what you think you know from history class.
Right. This is the unhinged side. Welcome, everyone, to Lifespan, the weekly podcast where we dig up the dirt on the most outrageous, chaotic, and frankly WTF lives ever lived.
We try to make it fun, fascinating.
Nah.
So yeah, share, rate, follow us for more wild stories.
Absolutely.
Today on the Lifespan podcast, we're taking that bizarre journey into Gerald Bull's world. Canadian engineer, totally obsessed with things that go boom.
And that obsession led him down some interesting paths, secret defense research, for sure.
And collaborations with, let's just say, less than reputable leaders.
Yeah.
Dictators.
Which all leads to that violent, very mysterious end.
Yeah. We're basically uncovering the story of the man who tried to build a gun so big it could shoot satellites and got assassinated in a hotel hallway.
It sounds like fiction, doesn't it?
It really does. You
Yeah.
might think you know history, but this is the unhinged version. The sheer ambition, the audacity, it's kind of unbelievable.
That's what gets me, just the sheer audacity of trying to launch things into space with a cannon, not rockets, a
Yeah.
cannon.
I know. What kind of mind even goes there?
Right? Okay, so Act 1, the prodigy with a death wish.
Let's do it. Gerald Bull, born Ontario, Canada, 1928, and apparently not your average kid.
No, definitely not. A genuine boy genius, they say. Obsessed with flight, physics.
And explosions. Can't forget the explosions.
Crucially, the explosions. And this wasn't just a phase, it defined his entire bizarre journey.
And he wasn't just tinkering in his shed, right? He rose pretty fast.
Oh, yeah. By his early 30s, he's already deep in defense research. Secret stuff.
A rising star in a field where, new ideas can really change the game, geopolitically speaking.
Exactly. And his big idea, the core concept, was using these enormous cannons, artillery, to shoot things into space.
Well, everyone else is focused on rockets, missiles. The space race is all about rockets.
He's thinking completely differently. Almost. Old school. But supersized.
Like you said, not your average field gun.
Not even close. We're talking city-flattening, mountain-sized cannons. It sounds like Looney Tunes, seriously.
While E. Coyote with a PhD pitching NASA.
That's it. That's the level of just
Context.
wild ambition.
But here's the thing. It wasn't just a crazy dream. He actually got funding.
Right. In the 60s, Canada and the U.S. government, they funded Project HARP, High-Altitude Research Project.
And they were doing this out in the open.
Pretty much on a beach in Barbados using these massive converted 16-inch battleship guns.
Battleship guns. Shoot things up.
Yep. Trying to hit the upper atmosphere. And you know what? It kind of worked. They launched projectiles like 110 miles up, edge of space territory.
No way.
Yes way. And one shell apparently hit 112 miles, which technically,
Outer space.
by some definitions, yeah, they were tickling the cosmos with artillery fire. Achieving those speeds with a gun, that was a real feat.
That is mind-blowing. So why did it stop? Too expensive? Too weird?
Both. Plus, the space race was heating up and rockets were clearly the way forward for the superpowers. RTARP just seemed out there. Funding dried up.
And that's when Bull had his change of heart.
You could call it that. He basically said, paraphrasing here, if governments won't fund my genius, maybe dictators will.
Wow. Okay. That's a turning point. A big one.
A huge one. He steps away from the mainstream science world and into, well, murkier waters.
Definitely murkier. Which brings us to Act 2. The supergun, the dictator, and the bullet that shook the world.
Okay, so picture the scene, 70s, 80s, Cold War's still on, but it's messy. Proxy wars everywhere.
Lots of money floating around, backroom deals. Prime time for arms dealers, right?
The Wild West, basically. And Bull fits right in, but he's not just selling rifles.
No, he's the MacGyver of Mach 10.
Huh, yeah. Innovating, solving super complex ballistics problems, and willing to sell his tech to, well, pretty much anyone with the cash.
Including some regimes that raise eyebrows today. South Africa during apartheid?
Yep. Iran, Chile, China. He was making the rounds.
But the big one, the deal that really tips things into Real madness, as you put it.
Iraq, Saddam Hussein in the 1980s.
This is where the ambition and the danger just goes completely off the charts.
Because he's not just selling them better artillery. He pitches Saddam the ultimate dream.
The supergun. Project Babylon.
A cannon, supposedly, to launch satellites from the Iraqi desert. Just the sheer nerve of that pitch.
What were the specs on this thing? I heard they were insane.
They were. They're all over 500 feet long, longer than a football field and a half.
Now get out.
Seriously. Designed to fire stuff at Mach 10 times the speed of sound.
And reach orbit. Low Earth orbit.
That was the claim. Whether it was really for satellites or
Yeah.
something else, that was the big question.
Yeah, I bet intelligence agencies were freaking out.
Absolutely. CIA, MI6, Mossad, everyone's wondering, is it a satellite launcher, a long-range weapon delivery system? Could it launch chemical weapons, nukes? Or is it just a massive bluff?
The uncertainty must have been terrifying.
Immense fear and concern, yeah.
And then it just stops.
Abruptly, March 22, 1990, Gerald Bull, assassinated,
Oh.
5 shots, head and back, outside his apartment in Brussels. Quick, clean, brutal.
Any clues? Witnesses? Arrests?
Nothing. No witnesses came forward, no suspects officially named, no arrests made. Vanished into thin air.
Wow. Okay. So the big question then.
Who did it? Which brings us to Act 3. Theories. Who killed Gerald Bull?
The official story is basically shady weapons genius gets killed.
Yeah.
End of story.
But it's never that simple, is it? There are layers. International players.
Let's start with the front runner. Theory number 1. Mossad, Israeli intelligence.
Right. This is the one most experts lean towards. The motive seems pretty clear.
Stop Saddam getting a weapon that could hit Tel Aviv from Iraq.
Exactly. Prevent that long-range capability. Israel was extremely worried about Iraq's weapons programs. They'd warned Bull, apparently.
And the method. Does it fit?
It does fit a known pattern. Silenced pistols, clean escape, minimal forensics left behind. It's consistent with other alleged Mossad operations, like taking out nuclear scientists they saw as threats.
Okay, plausible. What about theory 2? CIA or MI6? The West.
Also plausible. Motive. Bull's feeding advanced tech to a hostile dictator. Plus, he had that previous conviction in the U.S. for illegal arms sales back in '80.
So maybe they decided he was too much of a liability. A loose cannon. Literally.
Could be. But the timing is a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, why wait until the gun's nearly finished? If you want to stop it, why not act sooner?
Good question. Makes you wonder.
Okay, theory 3. Iran.
Right. Iraq and Iran were locked in that absolutely brutal war. The supergun, even just as a concept, could have been a huge strategic factor.
And Iran wasn't exactly shy about using assassins, were they?
No, they weren't. So it's possible. But the direct evidence linking them seems thinner compared to Israel or maybe the West.
Less likely, perhaps. How about theory 4? Iraq itself. Saddam.
Now, that's an interesting one. Saddam was famously paranoid.
Notorious for it. Purging his own ranks,
Mhm.
eliminating anyone he even thought might be a threat.
Exactly. So, did Bull know too much? Did Saddam worry Bull might sell the tech to someone else next? Or just decide he wasn't needed anymore?
Is there any actual evidence for that?
Nothing concrete. It's more based on Saddam's known behavior. Friendly fire, so to speak, wasn't unusual. Intriguing, but very speculative.
And then you get the really wild theories, right?
Oh, yeah. The internet loves those. Bull faked his own death.
Zero evidence, but popular online.
Or maybe some secret aerospace cabal silenced him to control space weapon.
Like a sci-fi plot.
Or that the gun wasn't even meant for Saddam, but someone else entirely.
It just shows how his story has become almost mythical, doesn't it? The secrecy, the sheer scale. It invites speculation.
It really does, even decades later.
So what happened after he was killed? What's the legacy? Act 4. The legacy is shot across time.
Well, his death basically killed Project Babylon, flatlined it.
Who cleaned it up?
British authorities stepped in 1990, seized the components, dismantled the whole thing. Some bits are apparently still in museums or military vaults in the UK, relics of a bizarre dream.
But the idea didn't die, did it?
No, the idea lingers. Bull's story is this cautionary tale about science, ambition, and the military-industrial complex. And yeah, it fuels endless conspiracy theories.
The who killed Gerald Bull question is kind of like the weird Canadian cousin to the JFK assassination debate online.
Huh. Yeah, it has that persistent quality, and you see his influence pop up.
Like in pop culture.
Definitely. There was that BBC movie Doomsday Gun back in '94. Frank Langella played Bull.
Oh, I remember that.
And the whole supergun troop shows up in Bond films, video games, Call of Duty, for instance.
It's such a compelling, almost archetypal evil genius concept.
It is. And what's really interesting is the connection to actual modern military thinking.
How so?
Things like kinetic bombardment, the rods from God idea, dropping heavy projectiles from orbit, or orbital railguns. Bull was dabbling with the fundamental physics of that stuff decades ago.
So he was accidentally way ahead of his time in a really scary way.
You could argue that. He may have unintentionally pioneered satellite artillery concepts long before they were mainstream discussion points.
Aiming for the stars with a gun. It's quite the image.
Incredibly innovative and deeply unsettling all at once.
So, wrapping up this truly bizarre journey, let's just quickly recap. We had the boy genius, obsessed with explosions.
The space gun dreamer who actually got government funding? For a bit.
Then the descent into the shadowy world of international arms dealing.
Leading to Project Babylon, the supergun for Saddam.
And finally, the unsolved assassination, leaving a tangle of theories and suspicions.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy final thought, doesn't it?
Go for it.
When you're talking about scientific ambition, especially ambition on the scale, where do you draw the ethical lines, particularly when it gets tangled up with global politics, dictators, and the raw pursuit of power?
Yeah. Could a project like Babylon ever have stayed just a satellite launcher? Was that even possible?
It makes you think about the what-ifs, right? And the strange, unsettling legacy of a guy who really did try to shoot for the stars with a cannon.
A potent thought to end on. So, folks, if you found this bizarre journey into history's unhinged side as fascinating as we did,
please share Lifespan Podcast. Tell your friends.
And definitely rate and follow the show wherever you listen. We've got plenty more outrageous, chaotic, and WTF stories from history coming your way.